I remember how my legs shook as I walked into the class at Sequoia Adult School as a tutor for the first time. My hands were slick with sweat. I was 13 years old, I was in 9th grade, and my voice hadn't even broken. And the students in front of me were all adults. I felt overwhelmed and underqualified. The people in front of me reminded me of my parents and older relatives. I couldn't ever imagine being their teacher. A lot of them looked like my teacher. And I started to wonder what I'd gotten myself into. Before anything else, I was a classroom assistant, and not a good one at that, because I never actually assisted. All I would do was just walk around the classroom, and instead of helping the students, I was just increasing my daily step count. I remember a particular time where I swear I circled that classroom 20 times, too scared to dive in and see what the students were up to. The only time I would ever help is if students specifically asked me to come over, and all I could do is just smile and repeat exactly what the teacher said, and that's not what the students needed nor what they wanted. So here's what my issue was. I thought teaching was all about power. The teacher is a commander, and they command the students to do problems, exercises, and tests, the sort of dynamic you see in movies and TV shows. And as a 13-year-old who had never taught before, I never thought I could fit into that role as a commander for these adults. After a month of assisting the main math teacher, I was asked to start teaching a group of accelerated students, a smaller group. And to prepare for the class, I had read the textbook enough times that it felt like burnt into my head. And it's funny even now, because 3 years later, I remember exactly what those pages looked like as I studied them for what felt like hours on end. I walked into that class so nervous, wondering how awkward it would be for me to be the person in charge in a room of adults. But as soon as the class started, that all went out of the window. I didn't need to try to remember exactly what I'd burnt into my brain the night before. The conversational space was actually filled by students asking questions to other students and other students responding. Oftentimes, the students were explaining to other students in terms of what they already knew. We were learning about percentages the first day, and the students were talking about the discounts they saw in the store earlier in the day. I saw as the understanding spread from table to table as this new novel concept was being explained in terms of what everyone was already familiar with, which is a learning technique that was really important to Sequoia Adult School, and in general, I think is very important in general. So as I said before, my issue is that I never thought I could be the commander in a room of adults. But the realization is that I didn't need to be. In that classroom, we had created a community where everyone became teachers for short bursts of time. And I think that's what teaching is all about, creating a community where everyone can learn together. And when I hear about these new perspectives on how people are understanding these new novel concepts, I'm as much of a learner as anyone else in that classroom. And I started to build off of that as I continued to teach. Teaching became a lot less formal and instructional and became a lot more fun. And these are the sorts of lessons I also take as a student. I feel more comfortable to engage with my teachers about the topics on hand rather than feeling intimidated by their authority. I've also started paying more attention to how the students around me learn, and I think it's really valuable to hear their perspective. And in general, I think we can learn so much more if we start to pay attention to how people around us are learning as well. It's really vitalized my excitement for learning in the future, whether that's in school, out of school, formal, informal, etc. So as I said, my experience at Sequoia was me learning how to be a good teacher. But by extension, I learned a lot about what it means to be a good learner. And for the foreseeable future, that's mainly what I'll be. I'll be a learner. And even then, I'd argue that everyone for their whole lives is primarily a learner before they're a teacher. And that's where this experience has impacted me the most, as I said, giving me that newfound vitality for learning in the future. If there's one thing I want to leave you with, it's that great learning is shared learning. Let's break free from these rigid definitions of teaching that have defined our education for almost our entire lives. Thank you.